And Siddhartha talked about the middleweight segment and why we believe it's a growth opportunity in both mature markets as well as developing markets. And the right-hand slide, part of this slide is actually in the Eicher Motors investor packet, so I'm not going to talk about it much. But the beauty of it is, in developing markets, everybody is interested in moving up to the next, or the premium, or the larger motorcycle. So the middleweight segment is definitely growing in the developing markets. In the mature markets, there's a new dynamic happening in mature motorcycle markets. And believe it or not, people are actually downsizing. And the middleweight segment is right now, in most of the markets, the only growing segment. So we're hitting it from both ends, and there's opportunity in both developed markets, or mature markets and developing markets. We are going to take our time, we're going to learn, and we have, like we do with most areas of the business, but we've identified some key international markets that we're going to focus on, and today I'm just going to talk about a couple of those. The first is North America. Again, not a huge market if you look at true total volumes, but a very important market and one that we believe influences most other markets, motorcycle markets around the world. So it's a real influential market. It is. We really focused on the next new product that we were introducing into the United States, and that's the Himalayan. We took the opportunity to have a very big media ride where we invited 15 journalists for a couple of days, taught them about the brand, so we had a smaller scale of what you see in the back, to really reintroduce them into the Royal Enfield brand, the current Royal Enfield brand. And we gave them great riding experience, both on-road and off-road, and the impact was wonderful. Over the next 12 months, it more than doubled the sales within North America. In fact, a couple of the journalists went and bought a Himalayan as their personal motorcycle, because they were so enthused about the motorcycle itself, because it really created a new niche or category within the US market, where again, the US market was used to very big, expensive motorcycles, but the Himalayan really got people thinking differently. And so we're going to leverage the learnings from this as we move into the twins, especially in North America. Shubhranshu showed a video, so I won't go into the detail, but we were fortunate enough to host the global media ride for the twins in Santa Cruz, California, which as a backdrop is a great backdrop for this global ride, because Santa Cruz is the home of surfing. That's where surfing was born. And in the mid-'60s, the Interceptor was really kind of a surf scene motorcycle. So we were able to reintroduce the modern Interceptor in California to the global media, and it worked out wonderfully. We had over 120 journalists from around the world. We give each of them a couple of very solid days of riding. We taught them a lot, again, about the brand, and the impact was very, very significant. And you saw the numbers from the previous presentation, but over 38 magazine covers, a lot of great press. And that is having a huge impact, not just in India, but around the world. Great, we've done hundreds of demo rides, and we've been selling the twins for about a month in the United States, and the demand is huge, and we're putting a lot of pressure on our friends at the manufacturing facility to give us more, because demand exceeds supply right now. But we'll talk a little bit about some of the opportunities in Latin America. The first is Brazil. Again, we opened up a wholly owned subsidiary there about 2 years ago. As Siddhartha said, we started with one dealer. Let's learn, let's understand. The good news is the motorcycle industry is about 1 million units a year, and it just bounced back after a few years of being down. But most importantly, the middleweight segment is growing again, and represents over 12% of the overall two-wheeler industry. And the middleweight segment in Brazil is actually one of the larger middleweight segments in all markets around the world. So it's a really good base It's a really strong motorcycle market. Colombia, we've actually been in Colombia for several years and started out with one dealer, and we've grown from there as well. The two-wheeler market is kind of flat at about 600,000 units. But the good news is you can see that the middleweight segment is growing very rapidly. So the common theme is the middleweight segment growing, and so we're focused on those commuter motorcyclists who are interested in getting into more of the recreational space, which is a trend that's happening very quickly. And also on-road, off-road, so the Himalayan really works nicely in this market as well. Again, the growing middleweight segment is kind of what's discussed on the left. A good percentage of the motorcycles are greater than 150 cc. And then the type of motorcycle, kind of a roadster look, as well as the on-road, off-road, are the most popular motorcycles. So those two segments we play in very strongly. Argentina is the last market I'll talk about. A lot of similarities to Colombia. Although we've only been in Argentina for about 1 year. So similar backdrop, the motorcycle market itself is about 600,000 motorcycles. The middleweight is actually much higher. It's almost double what it is in Colombia. A lot of recreational riding, great infrastructure. They like faster motorcycles, and our product actually fits in nicely with their riding style. So similarly, actually, a higher percent are in the middleweight segment or even above 150 cc's. So we see a good trend there, as well as, again, the roadster and the on-road, off-road. We've really shifted our strategy from being opportunistic to really being a true international growth strategy. We see opportunity in both mature markets as well as the developing markets. We are going to look at this as a long-term strategy, but we're seeing some really great initial results, so we're excited about that.
For an organization which has been there for 1950s, the manufacturing setup primarily had been very, sort of to say that with the qualification primitive. When the growth story came up, then we started looking at what is that we have to do, what can be the catalyst which can actually help us to bring in the entire mindset that has to get shifted in the whole organization. And that's where we started working on. The UCE platform, it's let alone as an organization, we find that it is not a product alone. If it's just a product which has to be changed, probably we would have done it in a different form. But it was as actually the cusp in which the entire growth story has to be built on. At least for next 10, 15 years, if we have to grab the story, what are all the areas which we have to start working? That's when we thought that we have to start working on a capacity build. At that point of time, we were not having enough capacity. Then capabilities and competencies. So that's how in every stage, we have been doing it in modules. That's one thing which we have actually done it in a proper form. How is that helping as an organization if you have to talk about we are not putting the capital in one full hog, waiting for the market to come. So we always wanted to maintain a healthy gap between the demand and supply and put the capital and extract maximum out of it and keep moving parallelly. I think as a clockwork, we did all those projects without any cost overrun in those projects, which has actually helped us to extract an efficiency. Today, when I sit and then look back on the whole thing, what's happening is when the BS6 comes in, and the new platforms which are coming in, these modules are actually helping us to level out on shutting down some modules and then changing over to the new platform which is required and picking up and ramping up and then going to the next level. So there is always a continuity which can be maintained into that. That's the module which has really helped us. Vendor base. We started looking at rationalization of the entire vendor base because that's when they can help us in technologies and all those stuff. Started looking at those who can't live up to the QCD parameters. So we started weeding off some of them, consolidated some of the guys, and then we started working with them. That's how the actual supplier base also started working along with us in the journey. We actually brought it down to almost about 166. And now with the BS6 new platforms which are coming up, we're just allowed, because it's only available with a few areas, and we are also doing almost 3,000 per day types. So we can't shut down something and then bring out the number. So we allowed it to go up. Once again, we will start looking at once it gets matured. That's the status which is there. Our sourcing is from all over. I mean, though the import content of the whole thing is only about 2%, and consciously we have been working that whether we can bring everything closer to us. Co-location is the thing, which is, that's how the efficiency can be extracted. So more and more people, we are bringing them closer. You can see the monthly purchase value is about 68%, which started off almost about 23-24%. We moved and then made all the suppliers to come closer to us because we have the scale. If they come closer to us, then together we can actually extract the efficiency of it. That's how the cost actually we got up very much into this. It's a single line. We can do at almost about 284 SKUs. Every 8 vehicle base, the color change can take place. So we don't need to have separate lines. I've seen most of the areas, you would have seen platform-wise, they'll be separate. In fact, we started looking at even different platforms, can it come in one line? Then everybody is actually working on it in unison. That's how we started looking at even the vehicle assembly. We are the only factory wherein engine assembly and the machining are in the different levels. Most of the things will be in one particular area. We actually questioned it. We thought that let's shift the assembly up in one place. Maybe a way to look at is, per motorcycle, the square feet consumption, we are the least. And the next which we are talking about the capabilities, I think today we are in the technology which is adopted is standing up to be the best in the class. It is fungible, and it is fungible to an extent that the capital which are employed are not one such thing which will actually become redundant when we are doing a platform change or something like that. It is so fungible that when we are actually doing it, at the design stage itself, we started looking at what capital we have put, whether it is really okay when we are doing a design or anything to be modified. In such a form, the capital is also used. So that's a checkpoint which we do it at every point of time. When we worked on these two, obviously there is one C which we mentioned is about the competency. That's when we thought that we'll come over here where the competency is available and we'll start recruiting. That's how we recruited Simon. Now I will ask Simon to come over and then talk about what's that the competency which we have actually built in the entire new product strength. Then I'll come back and then talk about the rest.
So I'm just going to talk a little bit about our development team, about the changes we've seen in the last few years, why we've been doing those changes and what that's given us. So our development team historically was based at Tiruvattur, the original factory from the 50s. Recently, we've basically outgrown that place as the team has grown. So we're now talking about the UK Technology Centre, which you've hopefully all just seen, and our new India Technology Centre, where all of our team in India will shortly be located. There's some of them already located there, but within the next month, hopefully we'll get everybody there. So, a little over 5 years ago, we as a company, so Siddhartha and the senior management team, realized that we needed to really step up our development capability for a variety of reasons. We'd had some great success based on a UCE platform, but we as a company realized that you can't just keep on doing the same thing. You need to be looking at what's the next big thing. Yeah, so we wanted to expand, continue to expand in India, expand globally. Both of those needed a wider model range. We had forthcoming challenges with legislation we knew coming up. We wanted to improve our quality to achieve those global expansion aims, both of which meant significant re-engineering needed. And we also had an internal challenge in that we had relied quite extensively on external consultants for some of our previous work. So we needed to build up our capability in-house. So who am I talking about for product development? So my area is the product development team. There's some other teams involved, going from concept through to production. So the product strategy team basically look at the market, they look at the business case, they identify the opportunities, identify what are the projects we should be doing, what are the products we should be developing. The industrial design team, again, you would have seen some of these guys in the, and ladies in the UK Technology Centre. They're responsible for the visual appearance, and they'll work very closely with the engineers to make sure that the styling fits with engineering, and there's an iterative process there. The product development team themselves, these are our engineering analysts, the design engineers for powertrain, for chassis, for electrical, and very importantly, the validation team. who make sure that what we actually put out is not only looks great, feels great, but lasts the course. Recently formed is the Genuine Motorcycle Accessories team, headed up by Rich on the table there, who again you may have met earlier. So an important point here is that the accessories team has to work very closely, both with the product strategy team, with the industrial designers, with the engineering designers, because if Rich's team, for example, designs a beautiful luggage system, but when you go to fit it on the bike, the mountings aren't in the right place, and actually it breaks the back of the motorcycle because it's not been designed for it, that's obviously no good. So the motorcycles have to be designed in parallel with the accessories you want to put on, so you need to think about that right at the start. And finally, the current engineering team. There is a continuous improvement process. Once a motorcycle is finished development, that's not the end of the story. There is a team that then takes over and keeps on pushing to improve that product for its entire lifetime in the market. So all these teams together have seen enormous changes. Over the last 5 years, we've seen a growth from approximately around 60 to around 400 people engaged in the design and development of our motorcycles. I've just picked on one area. I could have picked on several. We've really focused on analysis. Now, this is kind of doing your testing in the digital world. You know, it's much, much easier and cheaper and faster to make changes to a digital model than it is to a real tooled component. So we do as much analysis as we can. We've really been focusing on building up the team, building up the capability, developing new methods. And this is everything from pressing analysis to modal analysis, looking at vibrations, resistance to impact, finite element analysis. There's lots and lots of really clever stuff that these guys do. We have a real global excellence center in our analysis team now, with the objective of finding the problems before you actually invest in the tooling. Yeah? So the idea is you get rid of the nasty surprises. And of course, what's going on in India is going to dwarf what's going on here. Yeah, we have a much bigger technology center nearing completion in India. And it's not just for the development teams, it's, the other teams, the other non-production teams in India as well, but I'm focusing on the development end of it. And that's not just a nice place to work for these people. This gives us new development capabilities. There's a lot of new equipment going in that we either haven't had before at all or we haven't had as much. I'm particularly excited by the Hemiana Kirk chamber we will have shortly, which will really help us in developing the sound of our vehicles. So that's getting rid of the unpleasant parts of the sound and obviously emphasizing the nice parts. So working on our character, the stuff that really makes our motorcycles attractive. We haven't had this facility before. This will really give us a boost. We've got another piece of equipment, what we call a four-poster, which you do need to see this in motion. So can we have the video, please? It's just a short segment. There you go. So the idea of this, obviously, is we are simulating road riding. We can simulate road riding anywhere in the world. It's in early days yet. We have a lot of work to do before we're confident of the correlation between that and real-world riding. We'll never eliminate real-world riding, but this is, again, a way of speeding up the development process, finding the problems earlier. We can run through the day, through the night. We can even look at accelerated use on this piece of equipment. Again, it's going to improve our development capability. It's not just that. We have many more of the same equipment. So we got, just to put some numbers to it, we got 9 engine dynos instead of the 3 we had, 4 chassis dynos instead of just the 1 we had. We have a climatic chamber, emissions dynamometer, many more component test rigs. We've got improved in-house prototyping capabilities. We've added 3D printing and vacuum casting alongside the existing processes. And this is all aimed at speeding up the whole process, improving our control of the quality of the prototypes, the speed of delivery, just so we can get to those vital validation tests quicker in the process. So speaking of delivery at the end of it, all of that stuff about the team, processes, capabilities, etc., it's all about the outcomes, and what is the outcome. So really the first product of that renewed team has been the new 650 Twins. And they have had an absolutely phenomenal response.
There's a tremendous work and a constant utter type of an attitude which has been brought inside the organization. We have a separate cost management cell, as good as almost about some 30 people are employed into this. Their job is primarily to look at first principle costing of every part. Some of the black box items, because a lot of you people were asking, what does it mean for BS6? What does it mean for ABS? And those areas, how is the costing done and all those areas? What we have started looking at is some people who are actually superannuated from those sort of a technology area. We are in touch with them and then started working with them to do a first principle costing even for that, to understand when you open up and then explore, what is that it can be actually be done at a location. And there is a lot of import content which are going to be there. At what point of time indigenization is there globally? What is the thought process which is going to happen even in the lunchtime, something we were talking about, some of the chipsets. Is it really going to get completely indigenized in India or not? Because that's the major cost factor which is there. So those are all the things constantly somebody have to be at it to understand that yes, we are there, we are not missing out any of the opportunities. What's it for the future? The future is when all these things are done, I think customization, which has been talked more and more, one is doing it once the vehicle is done and the customer takes it and then do it. Other is, can we start looking at the front stage itself, the customization can be there. Every consumer is different and everybody wants. Here is one sort of a bike with the basic platform which is set. It's not that it has to happen over, say, 3 months, 6 months time. It's a long journey which we have to do it, but eventually it can go there. Somebody was asking about the quality improvements is there, how is that, where is the cost and all. Just to give you a reference number sort of a thing, we used to have a warranty of 1 year, and a blended level, it used to be almost about 780 to 800 rupees per bike basis. Today, we are almost about 410 rupees on a 2 years basis. That's how the warranty level has moved in. Today, the first time right is becoming more and more an important thing. We learned in any of the new products which has launched had some issues and all those things. So this time in the Twins, the success is also because not that we did the same thing in a rigorous form. We wanted to change the course. We hired a Japanese consultant who actually taught us what is called as an SRK process, which is the Shokyudo Konde. It's all about new product launch. At some point in time, we thought that more and more inspection is not a good sign, but he actually taught us, yes, that's not a good sign when it's actually there SOP plus time. Till SOP, till it reaches to the consumer, you can't afford to make any mistakes by just saying that it is a non-value-added activity. It is a value-added activity till the consumer comes back and then say, yes, I tick the box for you guys. I think today the initial success which had been there has actually made us to think that that's the process which we will imbibe in the company for time to come, and every new product will go through that. So that's the confidence which we are talking about, that yes, our new products will come with the first time right, and we can stand up and then say that yes, all the quality discussions are not their topics nowadays to be looked on. CKD Assemblies Thailand, I think though it's not only the particular area, that's one area where we have decided, moved on and all those things. First time we are doing, we will learn and be ready for any of the countries. As Rod also talked about some of the countries which eventually will become only a CKD place. It can be even in the home country too, at some location which is there. So that's why I said we always look at what is called as the TCO, total cost of ownership. We start looking at everything on a TCO basis. If that's making sense for us, we will start looking at even for the home country.